Welcome to Squirrel Trails. I'm David.
And I'm Al.
Let's talk about emails and email hacks.
It's actually what we're going to be wandering into is what's called business email compromise. In other words, how can you be talked into sending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to somebody you don't know, even though you thought you did?
So Al, what do you got for us today?
Hey, the first article I've got is on what's called business email compromise, where a Catholic church was literally talked out of $175 million.
That's a lot of money for a church.
That is a lot of money for a church. They had a big construction project going on.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of money that's going out for that construction project.
Sure.
So it was known that they could be a target.
Okay.
So, I mean, anytime you got a lot of money being spent, you could be a target. So what ended up happening in this story, and it's basically what happens in most what we call business email compromise situations, is where you essentially get social engineered or conned.
Okay.
Social engineering is just really the new word for conning somebody.
I do like social engineering.
Yeah, it sounds so much better.
Yep.
But that's really what it is. You're being conned out of this. And in this situation, some con men essentially talked that company into saying, hey, I know you're going to pay this construction company. I work for them. Trust me.
Okay. I've
changed my bank account. Please send it to this bank account. And they gave them another bank account. Yeah.
So basically, the person from church,
Yep.
that church, thought that they were corresponding with the owner of, or not the owner, but someone from the company, the contractor.
Yeah, they were talking. They absolutely thought they were talking to the construction company. The guy said all the right things.
So how did that transpire? So they're emailing. So did the contractor get hacked then?
No, actually, the way this it can happen any one of a number of ways.
Okay.
We had a situation in India a few years ago where they actually stole 18.6 million.
Wow. Okay.
And in that situation, they'd actually run a very good con. They had set up communications ahead of time.
Okay.
Communicated with the accounts payable people. Talked with them about how they were setting up this particular transaction, and made it seem like it was just normal, but it was still, because it was a quote acquisition.
Yep.
That needed to happen on the quiet. They were able to keep the secrecy aspect to it, as well as introduce a certain sense of urgency.
All through email.
All through emails and actually some phone calls.
Oh,
okay. In the case of the company in India, there are actually some phone calls made.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that was really cool. Introduced themselves as a consultant that was facilitating the acquisition.
Wow.
Did all of these kinds of things. People tend to be trusting by their nature.
Well, especially I think if it comes to an email that you've already been corresponding with.
Yes.
I mean, that's if I know the email, if I recognize the email,
Yep.
I should know who that person is per se.
Right.
And I trust that.
Yes. And what can happen to this is, and we're wandering all over the place, but then again, it is Squirrel Trails.
Yep.
It is what we do. So what generally can happen with this is that the initial email gets hacked, but it could be as simple as somebody that knows your business.
Okay.
Let's say you're running a small business, and somebody contacts your trucking company, contacts you and say, hey, I've got a bill for something.
Okay. Yep.
And you owe that money to somebody.
Sure.
So, and they provide you just enough information to make you feel okay. And then you say, all right, so where should I send this to? I mean, how many times do you guys get a phone call on, in your car going someplace saying, hey, you're supposed to pay this particular credit card bill, or a particular car bill, or a
Sears bill.
Sears bill would come to mind. I got one recently for Verizon.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
yep. Bills coming up.
Yeah, bills are coming up, and you've not paid it, and so you get a phone call. How are you actually verifying that person?
Well, me, I tend not to. They call me. I'm not gonna pay some.
Yeah, you just send them to your wife. I know.
Well, that that too, but I don't trust. If they call me,
Yeah.
I don't trust
Yes.
because I haven't initiated the call.
Right.
When I call, then I trust because I know who I'm talking. I know who I'm calling.
Yes.
Per
and
se.
So let's roll this back to how this particular case in the church that lost a 1.75 million, so
Sure.
just a little bit,
Okay.
got impacted. In this case, they had, looks like somebody new with a contractor had called them, had called the church
Yep.
and said, hey, you owe this, please send us this money to this account because we've had to change our account.
Yep. Okay.
Then these days, accounts get compromised all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I mean,
people may be changing bank accounts,
Yeah.
going to a different bank, going to a different bank
Different
account
bank
number,
account, yeah.
all sorts of things.
sure.
So they said, oh, okay, and then simply set up that
Set.
payment to that account because who's going to lie to somebody at a church?
That's true. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you go to hell for that. So not sure that this person was terribly concerned about that.
Probably not. I mean, if they're already, if this is one step close.
Right. So here's the deal on this kind of a thing.
Okay.
What should you do when you get that kind of a phone call? What would you do if I contacted you and said, I work for the guy that's building your house, and I give you the right information.
Sure.
I'm from this company. I'm located here. I may even know who the owner of the company is and,
Sure.
and impersonate that person.
So you've done your background. So
Absolutely.
it's hard to tell. Yeah. It'd be difficult. I probably would send the money.
Yeah,
To be honest, I probably would if you had the background.
right.
Yeah.
So here's the key: is you need to be skeptical.
Okay. Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
Often said on this channel.
Often said on this channel. This kind of stuff happens a lot, and it is when you're being asked to send money to something that's in an unusual fashion, whether it's I'm changing my bank account, and so send it to a different account. I am in an emergency, so send this. I'm the president of the company. Send me money. Send me this money right away.
I'm stuck overseas. Plan to send me $5,000 to help me get my visa back.
Yeah, that can happen. Or again, in the case of India, it was an acquisition.
Sure.
So you set up the right situation. In almost all of these situations, a simple phone call to the actual company
Sure.
would have validated this.
Well, the place in India, they thought that they were talking with someone.
Right. Absolutely did think they were talking to somebody, but they didn't know that they should reach out. They didn't know to reach out to the actual company management.
Okay.
And this is where this kind of stuff becomes important, is who's authorized to wire $18.6 million. It should not be a third-party consultant.
True.
So,
Yeah. So how would a small business protect themselves from this?
a couple of things on this one. Recognize, again, first of all, skepticism is the biggest piece, and
Yep.
again, we keep talking about that. If you think you're going to have an exception process, I mean, for most, okay, let's step way back. How much has to happen that quickly? It's kind of like when you buy a car, and the sales guy is telling you, "I got this deal for now, but if you don't turn on this deal, in the next couple of hours, I'm not going to be able to give it to you anymore."
Sure.
They introduce that sense of urgency.
Yep. Urgency.
That's a good sign that you're potentially being conned.
Okay.
So all the used car salesmen out there now hate me, but and I know good used car salesmen. I really do.
But as of right now, luckily that's not a lot right now.
Yeah. So anyway, where we're going with this one is, if somebody is trying to push you into doing something quickly, you kind of have to ask yourself, why do I have to hurry on this?
So what's the rush?
What's the rush?
Okay.
That's the first thing about being skeptical. Yeah.
Okay. What's the rush?
Now, let's talk about preventative situations. You may be in the line of business where you need to have some exception processes, where there's going to be times that somebody is overseas or somebody you're running a small business and you're not going to be able to get to the office to authorize something.
Okay.
So you need to have a exception process worked out for that.
Traveling vendors.
Yeah.
Vendors that travel.
Yeah, vendors that travel. That kind of a situation that you'd set that up. So again, let's say I'm a local construction company.
Okay.
And I've got to set up, I know that I'm periodically going to have to wire money to a subcontractor in a hurry.
Okay. Yep.
And I may be not at the office to do that. So I need to have a way to do that in such a way that I can contact my bookkeeper or my accountant and have them wire that money to the subcontractor while I'm at the job site. Not that unusual a situation.
Sure.
And in all honesty, that is one of those times that speed may be the nature because the subcontractor may be wanting to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are times of that. So you have an exception process when you do this. And that would be, you could actually have a code word that you've identified. That's actually been recommended in some of the websites. Certainly having an exception process where you're going to call the accountant and then maybe call somebody else that accountant could call what we call a side channel validation.
Okay. Sure.
So think of any way that you can create a process so that somebody can't impersonate you to have that money sent.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really the key way is how to do that. Now, email makes it very hard because if you get an email, you kind of naturally assume that that's from the person that's in the email address.
It's almost like a phone number.
It is almost like a phone number.
Oh,
However,
it is like a phone number.
yeah, okay, I'll go with
They
that.
both can be spoofed.
They both can be spoofed.
So,
Yes, good point.
so an email is like a phone number.
Yeah,
So you trust that number on your phone. It recognizes, yes, this is my wife. So
Right.
I should not pick up. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
this is my wife.
no,
I should pick up.
Yes,
Yes,
let's
yes.
make sure we have that down.
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yep. Right.
So the actually, I was okay. So moving right along before both of us get divorced. So a key part of this is with emails. As you get that, how do you know that the email is coming from the person that it's being purported to come from? And you have to provide that kind of verification of. That's a really good method to have an exception process.
Yeah.
So that I would say almost in any time that somebody is asking you to verify an exception, you should actually be able to go to somebody and say, hey, does this actually make any sense? Because then you're not the only one on the hook, in all honesty.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Right. And the other thing that comes into play, maybe you call that person directly.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if they email me, okay, so just wanted to make sure, ask a question.
Yeah.
Or over the phone, ask the security question.
Yeah. Hey, John, you called and asked me to send, $100,000 to Sally. Is that okay? And you say, who's Sally?
Sure. Yeah. You can. Yep.
That would be an indicator that we have a problem.
Is there a way to verify emails?
Actually, a little bit.
Okay.
There is some software out there. There's a process, and for the life of me, I have forgotten the name of it, where you can actually, the email address is not per se the address, but certainly the domain is verified.
Oh, sure.
So if you see the email is coming from bancourt.com, it'll actually say, yeah, I can verify that this is coming from bancourt.com.
Yep.
Instead of it being spoofed.
Sure. Sure.
Now that's not going to help you if the bad guy has mistyped the email.
Yep.
In such a way that it looks like it's Vancourt. It's got a L on the end or something else that you won't necessarily see. I mean, how many of you actually go across an email with your finger and go, thump?
Well, we just had this conversation a few weeks ago about what I was looking at different names for websites.
Yes, and we were talking about how to spoof somebody's website, but that one did not make a squirrel tracks cast.
No,
but we
no.
could potentially do that sometime.
Yeah, that was my conversation though.
That was a scary part, that you were doing that and reading privacy statements.
All for fun.
Yes.
Turning into you. Where's my gray hair?
It will come. You have kids.
True.
So,
It's coming.
So rolling this thing back. So let's talk about it. Just a tad more on this.
Sure.
You have business email compromises all the time. I mean, just within the last week, I pulled up 3 or 4 different articles from a variety of sites that show where there's business email compromise. It's a hot topic.
Sure.
As a business person, or for that matter, even an individual, because individuals get pinged with this all the time. There are all sorts of situations. In fact, recently There was a case where 9 men were arrested for running essentially a scam where they built individuals out of literally millions of dollars.
Wow.
You know, they were pretending that they were contractors. They were pretending that they were credit collection agencies.
Does this happen a lot with like phishing emails? Is that where this, a lot of this starts? Is that this whole phishing email?
That can.
Okay.
I mean, a phishing email is a good way to start.
That way, I mean, to get a backdoor, a Trojan
Yeah.
keylogger onto that email or onto that computer.
Well,
Because it sounds like they've gotten, a lot of these have gotten access to that email, so they're running that email account.
and that does happen as well, is that where an email's been hacked, and that's, again, a common technique, either by phishing or some other process. And to be honest, if you're continuing to use the same ID and password for all of your email accounts and all of your things, given the number of times there have been compromises with passwords and IDs, what we call credentials.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't changing those, on some kind of a basis, you can guarantee, or worse yet, if you're using the same one across many different environments.
I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
Scary.
most people do that.
Scary
Given that
enough.
we have hundreds of sites that we go to. I actually recommend some of these password locking routines where you actually have a service that
Password management.
password management service is actually the right way to go with that.
And we are open to talk about your password management company if you.
Yeah, we'd actually love to hear
Sponsor.
about what you folks are doing.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
Because it is something, I think, given that you're not going to have fewer passwords in the future, you're going to have to maintain
A
this.
lot more. I mean,
Yeah.
soon to even open our refrigerator, we're gonna have to enter a password.
That would help me lose weight. So, anyway.
Okay, let's not go
Okay.
down that road.
All right, back to the trail. So,
At least one of them.
yeah, at least one. All right, so, at any rate, where we were going again on this,
So these 9 guys got arrested.
these 9 guys got arrested.
So people do the FBI or whoever.
Yeah, people do get caught on this
Okay.
one. One of the things I wanted to wrap up on those 9 men that got arrested was that in some cases they were actually running essentially love letter kind of campaigns, where they were finding individuals, male or female, doesn't make any difference, to connect with them, establish a connection, and then convince them to send them money for whatever they were trying to do. There was a case of a situation with a reporter that covered this where she lost literally millions of dollars where somebody did this. And they were kind enough to eventually
Yes,
come in and say,
I remember this where they came back and said at the very end, "So I'm sorry, but I've been scamming you this entire time."
right. So I appreciated that that individual telling this story to a writer so that they would bring this forward, because it is an issue.
Yeah, for
So-
sure.
Simply because you see somebody on the internet, you can't necessarily trust them. You need to be able to do something to verify, especially if they're going to ask you for money.
Definitely, yes.
So if you're just chatting with somebody, not a problem. If you're chatting with somebody that, but if somebody comes on and says, "Hey, I'm trying to set up a device, and I need your password," don't give it to them.
No, no.
That would be a bad thing.
Yes.
So, okay, so where David was going with this is that the FBI has now established, because this is the #1 issue. This is the top scam in the country right now, and has been for a little bit of time. Business email compromise is a huge deal. It is costing literally $12 billion a year over the last 4 years.
That's a lot of money.
That is a ton of money.
Are they recovering all of it?
They're not recovering very much of it. They're recovering some.
Okay.
But these guys are pretty good. If they've set themselves up correctly, I give you the bank account number that I'm going to have you send that money to,
Oh,
and then
I send it to you.
It's out of that account in Toot Sweet, and I'm gone.
It goes from me to you to someplace else.
Yes, and I'm now out of here.
Sure. Are the banks responsible for that? Is that
No.
something that banks?
Well, okay, to some degree, this would come into the area of what we'd call suspicious activity, where they
Okay.
would report that.
Sure.
And yes, and to be honest, many banks are setting up fraud routines where they are trying to spot this kind of activity.
Okay.
Account takeover is another issue.
That's another video.
Yes, we won't talk about that tonight. But anyway, these are the kinds of things. And let's me be very clear, these opinions are mine and not that of my employer.
Oh, or mine and my employer.
Yeah, or one I may have in the future.
And hopefully I have in the future.
Yeah, so anyway, that's really a key thing is that the banks are taking a lot of actions on these to try to monitor for this.
Yeah.
Because some of this gets funneled into fund terrorism, because it's not just a bad guy that's trying to retire.
No, yeah, it's something worse than that sometimes.
Yeah, they're actually using this money for organized crime, they're using it for terrorism, and in that situation, it's kind of a bad thing.
Sure.
Well, it's always a
Oh,
bad
I was
thing.
just to say sometimes. It's
Sometimes.
always when someone steals my money, it's usually always a bad thing.
Dad, when would it ever be a good time?
When your kids are stealing from you.
Yeah, we won't talk about the times. So anyway, one of the nice things that's happened this last year or so is that the FBI has stood up a recovery team. So
Yes.
if you've been hit on this, if something has come up and you have been compromised, you ended up, literally the way you generally find out about this, so what's happened in the case of this church or a county that this happened to for $4 million is a very similar situation. The contractor called them and said, hey, I didn't get paid. And the person said, no, I wired you the money.
Yep.
And everybody went, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
And then it all comes crashing down.
Sure. Yeah, once someone looks into it.
Yeah, bad things at that point in time. So you need to contact your bank. You need to contact the FBI as quickly as possible so that they can do follow-up on this. Again, the FBI wants to catch these guys as well. And they're trying to put their resources together because every particular con man in this process has a technique that they use. So part of this is understanding those, and the FBI can start to pull this stuff together. That's kind of what happened with these 9 men that were arrested.
Okay.
Is they had created a chain that they were working, and the FBI was able to track them down.
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean that's a real key component. One of the interesting things, though, on a kind of a weird note, recently is a company out of the United Kingdom got busted for this kind of thing. They actually went and started suing their employee for like $138 million.
That's wow. So
Now, check that, not $138 million, for $138,000.
It's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money. Not
Yeah.
nearly as bad, but yeah. So
For getting fired.
yes. And basically they were going to sue the employee for negligence. And while that kind of makes sense, they really can't do that.
Can they?
Now, actually,
Can't they?
according to an article I was reading out of, again, about this was out of England, so I went to an English website
Sure.
called hdm.ie, so it's out of Ireland. Can employers sue employees for insured wrongs? And essentially what the article says, a very nice article, it says really no, because there's an expectation that you're doing this in the best possible way.
Okay.
So you're doing this.
Not that that means I should open every email and click on the buttons.
No, don't do that, because then you will get fired.
True.
So, and you will get fired.
Don't be click happy.
Yeah, don't be click happy. Yeah, and fortunately, some companies, well, okay, wander back.
Yeah, well, step back a little bit on that one.
Don't give me leading lines like that.
It's my job.
Yeah. So here's kind of the situation that comes into play. If you're and this is where that person responded, said, well, I never received training that I shouldn't, to know what I should do.
True.
And so we talked about how to avoid this. We talked about exception processes, something like a code word, be very skeptical. Here's the key thing. Train your employees, train yourself to be aware that there are these kind of situations and that there are these con men. You'd be amazed, and in some cases, they are as harmless looking and open-hearted from their appearance as your local grandmother or grandfather. But the reality is, you have to trust but verify. So implement a good training program.
Sure.
So that you can actually stay on top of these things. There's a number of these places out there which will give you some training programs. One of the websites that I like is called Securing the Human.
Interesting.
It's an interesting site. It actually talks about social engineering, and actually, for those of you of a level of interest, it will teach you how to do some social engineering. So But remember, always use your power for good.
Yes.
Because otherwise you go to jail.
True.
But it is a case of learning how the techniques work.
Can help you defend from attackers.
Absolutely will help you defend the attackers. And then I would just simply say, in many cases, let us not believe Alexander Graham Bell lived and died in vain, is my favorite saying.
Yep.
Pick up the phone and call somebody and verify.
Trust, but verify.
That would actually have solved many of these situations. I have one cute story that I will add, and David decided he's going to cut it or not.
I was going to say, well, we'll end after this one.
Yeah. So I was working at a company in which we did business with a lot of large organizations.
Okay.
And within our system, we would identify, we actually had loaded in a parameter file on the system, which bank accounts we would wire money to.
Okay.
For somebody. It was actually set up in a particular file. It was set up in a particular data file.
Okay.
So I asked the question. I said, "So who can edit that data file?" And they went, "What do you mean, who can edit a data file?" And I said, "Well, can I edit the data file?" And this was back several years ago. I didn't have really good controls on this, but they said, "Well, yeah, any of the production development or production operations people can edit that file."
Sure.
Because it's something that's going to change periodically. I
Yeah.
said, okay. So could I put my name and password in there? Now, the thing to remember is sometimes these payments were $24, $25, $30 million at a pop. So a lot of money at one pop. Some cases larger than that. So enough that you needed to be careful about it, because there are a lot of people who run away with a one-time win on that.
Yeah. If I walked away with just even $10 million, I'm pretty set.
Yeah. Actually, you're not. You actually need more money than that, but we won't go there. I've done the math. So going to take a lot more than that for me to walk away.
I'm still young. I don't have to retire now.
So anyway, there are. So I asked about that one. Well, we don't really have a lot of validation on that, because that's the same file that we use to make any of the other kinds of settings. It's not a particularly protected field. Yeah, so we talked about that with the company treasurer, and that changed.
That changed probably pretty quick.
Yeah, it did. So here's the thing. You need to understand how money is authorized to be sent within your company or within your applications. Definitely. How do you know that that data is correct? How do you know that it can be only changed when it's authorized, and that if it ever is changed, somebody will follow up on it and validate that it's correct? Because the time to find out that you sent money to the wrong person isn't after you've sent the money.
Should be before.
Yeah, that would be the theory.
So perfect. With that, see the articles that we've talked about, discussed tonight, will be down below. Go and check those out. Those links are trusted.
Well, as much as any link.
As much as any link. But we clicked it, so yeah. So find the links below, or you can just Google it. So I often do just copy the link in Google.
Yes.
So
that's actually not a bad way to go.
So that way, yeah. So with that, also don't forget to like and subscribe. And there is a bell after you hit subscribe. Hit the bell. That way you're notified when we post our videos every Monday, and maybe even more down the road on other days. Don't forget to also hit the thumbs up to like it, and don't forget to share.
Tell your friends about this.
Let us grow our community of squirrels that wander off fun trails. So with that, happy trails.
Take care, folks.